Welcome to War Bios, the podcast where we delve into the most pivotal battles in history, examining the strategic context, operational art, and human element that shaped their outcomes. The Battle of the Caudine Forks was a clash between the Roman Republic and the Samnites, a powerful Italid tribe that inhabited the central and southern regions of the Italian peninsula. This region, characterized by its rugged terrain, rolling hills, and dense forests, would prove to be a decisive factor in the battle's outcome. The Apennine Mountains, with their narrow passes and valleys, provided the perfect backdrop for the Samnites' clever tactics. To understand the origins of this conflict, we must delve into the early history of Rome's expansion into central Italy. In the 4th century BC, Rome had begun to extend its territories beyond the city-state, seeking to expand its influence and secure new resources. The Romans had already established themselves as a dominant force in the region, having defeated the Etruscans and the Latins in previous conflicts. However, their expansion into Samnite territory would prove to be a more challenging endeavor. The Samnites, under the leadership of the cunning general Gaius Pontius, had been observing the Roman army's movements with great interest. Pontius, who was known for his clever tactics and deep understanding of the Italian terrain, recognized that the Romans were overconfident and prone to underestimating their enemies. He began to formulate a plan to exploit these weaknesses, utilizing the Samnites' expertise in guerrilla warfare to wear down the Roman army. In the years leading up to the Battle of the Caudine Forks, the Romans had been making steady gains in central Italy, capturing key cities like Beneventum and Tarentum. The Roman consul, Titus Veturius Calvinus, had led his army deep into Samnite territory, seeking to deliver a crushing blow against the enemy. Unbeknownst to him, Pontius and his men were waiting in ambush, ready to strike at the perfect moment. The stage was set for a confrontation that would change the course of Roman history. The Roman army's ill-fated march into the Samnite trap would become one of the most infamous events in Roman annals. As the Roman army, led by consul Titus Veturius Calvinus, marched deeper into Samnite territory, they found themselves trapped in a narrow defile, surrounded by steep cliffs and dense forests. The Samnites, under the command of Gaius Pontius, had carefully prepared an ambush, utilizing their knowledge of the terrain to funnel the Roman army into a killing zone. The Romans, weighed down by their heavy armor and cumbersome equipment, were unable to maneuver effectively in the confined space, making them easy prey for the Samnite warriors. The battle was fierce and intense, with the Samnites employing guerrilla tactics to whittle down the Roman army. They launched surprise attacks from hidden positions, exploiting the Romans' weakness in adapting to unconventional warfare. The Roman legionaries, trained for traditional battlefield combat, struggled to respond effectively to these unorthodox tactics. As the day wore on, the Romans found themselves increasingly disorganized and demoralized, their casualties mounting with each passing hour. One of the most significant factors contributing to the Roman defeat was the clever use of terrain by the Samnites. The Apennine Mountains, with their narrow passes and valleys, provided the perfect backdrop for the Samnite ambush. The Romans, who had previously relied on their superior numbers and discipline to overwhelm their enemies, found themselves at a disadvantage in this rugged and unforgiving environment. The Samnites, on the other hand, were intimately familiar with the terrain, using their knowledge of hidden paths and secret positions to launch surprise attacks and evade Roman counterattacks. As the Roman army stumbled through the treacherous terrain, they began to realize the gravity of their situation. The Samnites had outmaneuvered them at every turn, exploiting their weaknesses and capitalizing on their mistakes. The Roman consul, Titus Veturius Calvinus, was forced to confront the reality of his army's defeat, acknowledging that they were no match for the cunning and adaptable Samnite warriors. In the aftermath of the battle, the Romans were forced to surrender, with many of their soldiers being taken prisoner or killed. The Samnites, on the other hand, had emerged victorious, having successfully defended their territory against the Roman invaders. As Gaius Pontius famously declared, "The Romans are more easily defeated by their own arrogance than by our swords." This quote encapsulates the essence of the Battle of the Caudine Forks, highlighting the hubris and overconfidence that led to the Roman defeat. The defeat served as a wake-up call for the Roman Republic, forcing them to reevaluate their military strategy and tactics. The Romans would eventually learn from their mistakes, adapting to the challenges of guerrilla warfare and developing new strategies to counter the unconventional tactics employed by their enemies. The defeat at the Caudine Forks marked a significant turning point in Roman history, forcing the Roman Republic to reevaluate its military strategy and tactics. The Romans realized that their traditional approach to warfare, which emphasized discipline and superior numbers, was not effective against the unconventional tactics employed by the Samnites. In response, the Romans adapted their military strategy, placing greater emphasis on flexibility, maneuverability, and intelligence gathering. One of the most significant consequences of the Battle of the Caudine Forks was the development of new Roman tactics, such as the use of smaller, more agile units and the incorporation of light infantry into their legions. These changes allowed the Romans to respond more effectively to guerrilla warfare and to counter the unconventional tactics employed by their enemies. For example, during the subsequent Samnite Wars, the Romans successfully employed these new tactics, ultimately defeating the Samnites and incorporating their territory into the Roman Republic. The Battle of the Caudine Forks also had a lasting impact on Roman military leadership, with many notable commanders, such as Fabius Maximus and Scipio Africanus, studying the battle and learning from its lessons. These leaders went on to apply the principles of adaptability, flexibility, and intelligence gathering to great effect in their own campaigns, securing significant victories for Rome and cementing its position as a dominant power in the Mediterranean. In addition to its military consequences, the Battle of the Caudine Forks also had significant political and social implications for the Roman Republic. The defeat led to a period of soul-searching and introspection among the Roman people, with many questioning the wisdom of their aggressive expansionist policies. This led to a greater emphasis on diplomacy and strategic alliances, as the Romans sought to secure their borders and expand their influence through more nuanced means. The Samnites, on the other hand, were unable to capitalize on their victory in the long term. Despite their initial success, they were eventually defeated by the Romans and incorporated into the Roman Republic. However, their legacy lived on, with many of their tactics and strategies being adopted by other enemies of Rome, such as the Carthaginians and the Gauls. The battle's legacy can be seen in the development of new Roman tactics, the evolution of Roman military leadership, and the lasting impact on Roman politics and society. As Gaius Pontius famously declared, "The Romans are more easily defeated by their own arrogance than by our swords." This statement encapsulates the essence of the Battle of the Caudine Forks, highlighting the hubris and overconfidence that led to the Roman defeat, but also the resilience and adaptability that ultimately allowed them to emerge stronger and more resilient. In conclusion, the Battle of the Caudine Forks was a pivotal moment in ancient Roman history, one that had far-reaching consequences for both the Roman Republic and the Samnites. Through its legacy, we can see the importance of adaptability, flexibility, and intelligence gathering in warfare, as well as the dangers of hubris and overconfidence. As we close our exploration of this fascinating conflict, we are reminded of the enduring lessons that can be learned from history and the significance of the Battle of the Caudine Forks in shaping the course of Roman history. Thank you for joining me on this journey through ancient Rome's most infamous defeat. That's all for today's War Bios. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, I'm General Biography reminding you to keep marching toward victory.